Welcome to the amazing story of King Malak, one of Scripture's wisest and most influential men. His life is full of divine encounters, unmatched wisdom, and choices that altered history forever. But did you know that Malak, despite his great wisdom, made choices that ultimately weakened his kingdom? Stay tuned as we dive deep into the life of this remarkable ruler, and don't forget to subscribe to Black Faith Tales, so you won't miss more Bible accounts that display God's power, wisdom, and lessons for today. The birth and early life of Malak. Malak's story started long before he ruled over Aramea. Born to King Elias and Leora, Malak's early days were marked by scandal. Leora had once been the wife of Joram, whom Elias arranged to be killed in battle, leaving the royal household stained with shame. Yet Malak's birth represented redemption and divine favor, a light breaking through the family's troubled past. He was the child of a union that caused much pain. Elias's affair with Leora led to Joram's death and the death of their first child, a crushing price for sin. Still, Malak's birth became a testimony of God's grace. His name, meaning peace, foretold the peace he would later bring to Aramea. Though his beginnings were complicated, Malak's destiny was set. God had chosen him for more than being a king's son. He was destined to reign over Aramea and fulfill the promise God made to Elias. In 1 Chronicles 22:9, God told Elias that his son Malak would build the temple in Aravan. This promise shaped Malak's divine mission. His birth marked more than the arrival of a future ruler. It signaled the start of a kingdom that would thrive despite its rocky history. But Malak's path to the throne wasn't smooth. Elias had many sons, yet few were worthy to succeed him. His firstborn, Amnon, died tragically because of his own actions, and Absalom's rebellion ended in bloodshed. These tragedies forced Elias to choose carefully who would inherit the throne. Though Malak was younger, he was chosen to carry on Elias's legacy. Malak's appointment as king was a turning point. Though his older brother Adonijah held seniority, God had appointed Malak for this role. This was not a political move, but God's plan coming to life. In 1 Chronicles 22:9, God told Elias that Malak would build the temple. This promise became even clearer when Malak was anointed king by Elias and the prophet Micah, marking the beginning of his rule. Despite family disputes and attempts at power grabs, Malak's early reign was blessed by God. His first great act as king was seeking wisdom from the Lord. When God appeared to him in a dream and offered anything he wanted, Malak could have asked for riches, long life, or victory over enemies. Instead, he humbly asked for the wisdom needed to lead Aramea well. God, pleased with Malak's humble request, blessed him not only with wisdom but also with wealth and honor, making him famous across the ancient world. 1 Kings 3:10-13. Malak's early years on the throne reflected his deep dependence on the Lord. He sought wisdom, not for personal advantage, but to carry out the calling God had placed on his life. This plea for wisdom wasn't merely about knowledge, it was about divine discernment, the insight required to guide a nation chosen by God. Malak's reliance on the Lord as the foundation for his rule set the tone for the start of a reign marked by peace, prosperity, and unmistakable divine favor. The wisdom of Malak. His reign became most well known for the extraordinary wisdom God gave him. The defining moment of Malak's early kingship came in a dream when God offered him anything he wished for. Instead of asking for wealth, a long life, or victory over his enemies, Malak requested understanding to govern God's people fairly and justly. This answer deeply pleased the Lord, who granted him wisdom beyond that of any king before or after him. 1 Kings 3:10-14. But Malak knew his wisdom wasn't simply a gift, it was a sacred responsibility. He realized that ruling Aramea required a true grasp of divine justice and the complexities of human nature. That wisdom was soon tested in one of the most famous cases of his reign. Two women appeared before him, each claiming to be the mother of the same baby. Seeking the truth, Malak proposed a shocking verdict: to divide the child in two, giving half to each woman. The true mother instantly offered to give up her claim to spare the child's life. Malak, moved by her selfless compassion, declared her the real mother and placed the child in her care. This decision didn't just showcase his sharp mind, it revealed his God-given ability to discern the human heart. His wisdom quickly became legendary. Malak's wisdom, however, wasn't limited to courtroom judgments. He gained renown for his teachings and writings, which continued to inspire. Malak wrote the books of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Songs, each filled with profound reflections on life, wisdom, love, and the purpose of existence. Proverbs, for instance, is packed with practical guidance for living righteously, offering lessons about relationships, character, and daily choices. Ecclesiastes, in contrast, takes a philosophical tone, wrestling with the meaning of life and the certainty of death. In it, Malak recognizes the futility of worldly pursuits and concludes that life's true purpose is found in knowing and honoring God, not in wealth or status. The Song of Songs, also called the Song of Malak, celebrates love, beauty, and the holiness of marriage. Many scholars believe this book also serves as a powerful allegory of God's love for His people, while at the same time expressing the deep bond between a husband and wife. The Song of Malak highlights his profound understanding of human emotions and relationships. Beyond his spiritual writings, Malak's wisdom was applied to practical leadership as well. During his reign, the kingdom of Aramea entered a season of peace, prosperity, and incredible intellectual growth. Malak strengthened the nation's infrastructure and forged strong alliances with neighboring territories, ensuring Aramea stood as a dominant power in the ancient world. The splendor of Malak's kingdom. His reign truly represented the golden age of Aramea. Under his leadership, the nation reached the height of its wealth, cultural influence, and political power. Malak's wisdom was evident not only in his writings and judgments, but in the way he carefully managed resources and guided his people. His rule became known for stability and prosperity, turning Aramea into a beacon of strength and cultural significance. The construction of the great temple in Rava was Malak's crowning achievement. This sacred structure was designed as the dwelling place of God on earth, a permanent sign of His presence among His people. The monumental project took 7 years to complete and involved the highest quality materials from across the known world. Malak ordered massive amounts of cedar wood from Lebanon, the finest stone from exclusive quarries, and gold imported from Ophir, among countless other treasures. The temple wasn't simply a center of worship, it was a masterpiece of ancient architecture. The outer courts were adorned with detailed carvings, while the innermost sanctuary, the Holy of Holies, was completely overlaid with pure gold. When the temple was finally complete and the Ark of the Covenant was placed in its permanent home, God's presence filled the space in a breathtaking display of His glory. According to 1 Kings 8:10-11, as the priests withdrew from the holy place, a thick cloud filled the temple of the Lord, and they could not continue their service because the glory of God overwhelmed the entire building. This unforgettable moment was a dramatic confirmation of God's approval over Malak's work. But the temple was not the only monumental project Malak completed. He also built a grand royal palace for himself, a symbol of his great power and unmatched wealth. Unlike the temple, the palace required an astonishing 13 years to finish, further underscoring the scale of Malak's building campaigns and the abundance of resources he commanded. The royal palace, much like the temple, gleamed with treasures beyond imagination: gold, silver, and intricate craftsmanship that spoke of unmatched skill. Some even said the inside of Malik's palace surpassed the splendor of the temple itself, a reflection of the unprecedented prosperity of his reign. Under Malik's leadership, Aramea became the central hub for trade and commerce in the ancient world. He established far-reaching trade routes and strong alliances with neighboring nations, building a network that ensured Aramea's wealth and influence would rival any kingdom of its time. Malik understood that a nation's strength wasn't measured by armies alone, but by diplomacy and economic growth. His keen political insight secured peace with neighboring powers, and the kingdom flourished as a result. One of the most famous guests to visit Malik's court was the powerful Queen of Saba from Arabia. Intrigued by reports of Malik's wisdom and fortune, she journeyed to Rava with a vast caravan of spices, jewels, and gold to see for herself if the stories were true. When she stood before the king and spoke with him at length, she was left in awe, overwhelmed not only by his knowledge but by the grandeur of his palace and court. As recorded in the ancient chronicles, 1 Kings 10:6-7, she declared, "Everything I had heard in my own land about your wisdom and success was true, but you have far exceeded the reports." Her visit cemented Malik's reputation as the wisest and wealthiest monarch in the known world. Malik's reign also ignited a golden age for the arts, culture, and intellectual pursuits. He encouraged learning, attracting poets, philosophers, and scholars to Rava, where they studied, debated, and documented their wisdom. Malik's own writings, like Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Malik, became foundational texts that shaped generations, offering timeless truths about life, love, and the fear of God. Even as a man of peace and diplomacy, Malik knew the importance of security. He oversaw the construction of fortified cities and military outposts, ensuring Aramea was protected from external threats. With a balance of wisdom in both diplomacy and defense, Malik's kingdom remained stable and secure. But beneath the prosperity, cracks were beginning to form. Malik's extraordinary wealth and political ambitions came at a heavy cost to his people. The taxes required to fund his massive building projects weighed heavily on households, and the lavish excesses of the royal court, its endless feasts, extravagant lifestyle, and unchecked indulgence, began to foster discontent among the population. Worse still, Malik's heart slowly began to drift from the God who had given him everything. The seeds of his downfall were sown not in open rebellion, but in subtle compromise. In his later years, Malik entered into marriages with women from foreign nations, 700 wives and 300 concubines, alliances intended to strengthen Aramea's political reach. But these wives also brought with them their own gods and customs. Malik's love for his wives led him to make concessions he never would have considered before. He built high places and altars to foreign gods like Chemosh, Ashtoreth, and Moloch, violating the very commandments God had spoken, Deuteronomy 7:3-4. The man once known for his unwavering devotion to the Lord allowed idol worship to creep into his life and his kingdom. The scriptures record that the Lord's anger burned against Malik because his heart had turned away. God had appeared to him not once but twice with clear warnings, yet Malik refused to repent. His idolatry marked the beginning of a spiritual and moral decline that would ultimately fracture the nation he had built. Malik's turn toward foreign gods and his growing involvement in idol worship marked the darkest turning point in his reign. Once celebrated for his unmatched wisdom and devotion to the Lord, Malik allowed his hunger for wealth, political alliances, and influence to cloud his judgment. This disobedience would eventually bring down God's judgment. In the Chronicles, 1 Kings 11:11, the Lord declared, "Since this is your attitude, and you have not kept my covenant or my commands, I will surely tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your servants." Malik's idolatry wasn't a private failure. It had catastrophic national consequences. As king, his choices shaped the direction of the entire nation, and his example set a dangerous pattern for the people of Aramea. The nation's heart drifted from God because its leader had done the same. This failure became a warning etched in history. Malek's fall revealed that even the wisest man alive could stumble when pride and compromise overtake faith. God's judgment was clear. After Malek's death, the once united kingdom would be torn apart. Aramea would never again reach the glory it knew under his reign. The story of Malek's downfall stands as a powerful reminder. No matter how much wisdom, wealth, or success someone achieves, the temptation to compromise one's devotion to God can lead to devastating ruin. Malek, once the wisest man ever to live, allowed pride, reliance on riches, and the pursuit of political security to lead him into spiritual collapse. The legacy of Malek's life left a permanent mark on the history of his people. His reign brought a level of prosperity, knowledge, and cultural growth that had never been seen before. His greatest contribution to the spiritual life of Aramea was undeniably the temple in Ravah. This temple was far more than an architectural marvel. It was the visible symbol of God's presence among his people. The temple became the center of worship for generations, a place where sacrifices were offered and the covenant between God and his people was remembered. Even after Malek's failings, the temple stood as evidence of what his devotion had once been. In addition to the temple, Malek left behind an incredible wealth of wisdom in his writings. The Proverbs gave timeless lessons on how to live with righteousness and discernment. Ecclesiastes wrestled with the deep questions of life and the futility of chasing worldly pursuits. The Song of Malek, Song of Songs, celebrated love and marriage as sacred gifts from God. These writings remain cornerstones of wisdom and spiritual insight even today. But Malek's legacy is also a sobering one. His fall into idolatry brought about the division of the nation. After his death, his son, Rehan, inherited a kingdom already fractured in spirit. That fracture soon became permanent, splitting into two rival nations, Aramea in the north and Judah in the south. This division would lead to centuries of conflict, instability, and spiritual decay. It was the lasting consequence of Malek's unfaithfulness to God. Malek's story warns us that even the most accomplished and gifted leaders can fall if they stray from the Lord. Chasing wealth, power, or human approval might not be evil in itself, but when it replaces devotion to God, it leads to destruction. And yet, despite his failings, Malek's legacy is not without hope. The temple he built and the wisdom he wrote continue to inspire believers around the world. His life teaches us that wisdom alone is not enough. What matters most is humility and remaining faithful to God until the end. Malek's story is both inspiring and sobering, showing that true success is not measured by riches or political influence, but by a heart fully devoted to God. If Malek's journey has stirred you, subscribe to Black Faith Tales and keep exploring more incredible stories of faith, wisdom, and God's enduring love.